the voice of the Cayman Islands, Radio Cayman.
Shining down from above.
We love our listeners.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. It is a Tuesday. Can you imagine already? The 7th of January 2020. Kind of like the vision some of us would like to have. Others of us kind of look back and realize the hindsight is 2020. But let's have a chance as we invite and welcome a gentleman who, without question, has an incredible vision. Mr. Mario Rankin, good afternoon to you, my friend.
Good afternoon, and I just want to say Happy New Year to all of Radio Cayman's loyal listeners. Certainly, it's a pleasure to be here in 2020. And
Amen, brother. Amen.
I thank Radio Cayman for that.
All right. Well, he's going to be, I don't want to say my guest. He'll sit here and, some would say back in the mother country, he'll be my, comrade. Today, we sit, we chat, we reason. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for joining us as we invite you. And if yes, you end up, doing the new technology thing for some of us, going online. What's it called? FaceTime, YouTube, YouTube, whatever. It's there. Just go on it, find it, and be a part of it. I pretend sometimes, but not always. Mario Rankin, without any, pretension whatsoever. It's always a pleasure, and I thank you for joining us as we have some fun today. Good afternoon again, my friend.
Yeah, no, certainly it's always a pleasure coming into Radio Cayman and having this open dialogue on many different topics. And I think that, these platforms are super important for the listening public and for all of those who just don't have the time to pick up a newspaper or have the time to really dive into some of the details. They can just tune into 89.9 and bring themselves up to speed on some of the topics. Not all of them, but at least we do our best.
Exactly, and topics that hopefully in a very constructive, meaningful
Absolutely.
way that we get to. And as you shared, it's one thing whether or not, and I love technology as much as I joke and jest about it, but the idea of sitting and reason, come let us reason, was something that we would do. We go back to, sort of the early days of history in our own society, whether it was, the tamarind tree downtown that's now been cut down, or whether it was, or is the lightest tree up in West Bay. People still assemble and chat. Now, those trees are disappearing like, the great men and women of that era. But it's for us to pick up the mantle, for us to not just look at what's happening internationally, but look at how it's impacting us locally.
Right.
I know.
Absolutely. I think one of the great lessons of learning history is to ensure that that we don't repeat it.
Yeah.
And the only how we don't repeat it is if we're very in tune with what took place. Yeah. And it helps us forge a better path forward in terms of how we go about and how we think about doing certain things. We've seen here in the Cayman Islands, and I think that in the last couple of years, through platforms like Radio Cayman, we've seen an abundance of activity on this level where we're starting to ask certain questions that we normally wouldn't have taken initiative to ask. And then in some cases we get answers, in some cases we get resistance, and then within that resistance, within that translation in the resistance, we start to understand better why certain things weren't talked about.
Yeah.
So for me, I think that we have a very important opportunity and job to do when it comes to having this type of conversation, and making sure that we have it, like you said, on when we try to speak the facts and be fair and what we say and what we don't say. So I always used to listen to talk shows prior to becoming involved.
Yeah.
And I always felt this high sense of urgency or need to participate. And at the beginning, just didn't know how to, because sharing your opinion about something you don't know nothing about, almost better to just continue to listen. So I then started to take the initiative to start bringing myself up to speed with certain things that I thought were more impactful to Caymanians or Cayman in general. So when we have these conversations, we can have a well-rounded conversation about it.
Yeah, it's something that I commend you for. I said it publicly, and I mean it sincerely, in that if we become informed about something, if we have an interest in something, we go ahead and, like you do, whether it's late into the night or early in the morning as it is, and we read, we talk to people, we get not just a perspective, but an informed, considered opinion. And as I listen to you, I recognize that the scripture talks about, tarry for a while. You go into a place and you tarry, you wait, you stay. We think back to what it may have been like from perhaps the perception we get from our readings. Here's Socrates, Aristotle,
right,
and the great philosophers of the day in the town square. Now, probably the sewage systems in some places weren't great. Probably there was a lot of noise and banter in other places, a lot of complaints, a lot of commerce and other things. But here's this group of people having a chat about what's going on. Today, we're so busy,
right,
that we no longer have time to chat. When we do chat, it isn't face to face. So what is it that old people tell us? I want to look into the white of your eyes and see what it is you're saying.
Right.
We no longer, we're hiding behind some blank screen, an anonymous handle of likes, and so we don't feel accountable nor responsible. Mm-hmm. You can't hear the voice, the intonation, you can't see the bottle language.
Right.
Hey, this is what I think is important. And take this Christmas, for instance. Normally I think Christmas, I say this partly in jest, but partly I believe how it should be. From the 23rd, 22nd, 24th of December to the 3rd, 4th, 5th of January, there should be a national go slow, where the country sits festive. There's a lot of food, family, fellowship, and not an irresponsible approach, so that the essential services don't have to worry about being overburdened with the stupidness that sometimes transpires when people may engage in too much banter and the like. But imagine if you had that, where for 2 weeks, thereabouts, the country can chat. Not unlike we did when the seafarers came home. It was this festive time, right? This Christmas, sadly, so much mishap, so much things happening. That normal time of food preparation and fellowship and sharing hasn't transpired because of all the things. And so our hearts are heavy for those who are mourning, for those who are nursing wounds and recovering and the like. I share that not to be somber, but to show how the society has changed so significantly, that time of being reflective and introspective and pensive and sort of inspired to say, well, what am I going to do in this new year, this new decade, right? That we still, relatively speaking, at the start of this new century. We don't have a chance to think about that, right? And what would that mean if, end of the first quarter, no thoughts into what we're going to do? Are we going to aimlessly wander?
Well, again, it's hard to have a conversation about all of those things in the absence of all the things that we used to do.
Exactly.
It's really hard to have that conversation without bringing in and I hate to say it, and I hate to be the one to have to keep saying it, without the effects of certain political decisions. Yeah. Now, we live in a society that is predominantly ran by politics, if not completely ran by politics, right? However, we know that in the past we elected people. We put all our faith and trust in those individuals to do what's right in terms of creating a sustainable environment for Caymanians. Nobody ever once indicated that the government should do anything other than, or that the government is doing anything other than. Everybody at some point thought that they were doing things that were in the best interest. It was only until after we've seen systematically where people are now becoming, hard pressed on being sustainable. People are becoming hard pressed on paying bills and being able to do all these things. But we don't see any real movement or any real mechanisms being put in place in terms to deal with those issues. I mean, we could talk about cost of living for another century if nothing is done about it.
Right.
And I'm not here to point out the ills and spills of cost of living. I can give you 3 solutions right now that could help cost of living. Put in a regulatory body for fuel. Ensure that we own the grid in which provides energy for us. Ensure that we are in charge of purchasing of fuel in which we have to pay 100% of. All of these things could be done tomorrow morning, but again, when we look at the political resistance to these things and we dive in and we peel certain layers of that onion back to find out why that resistance is in place, then it becomes very clear that this is a politically motivated initiative, or this is a private motivated initiative that has now spilled into our political arena. Again, it's hard for us to have a conversation on any level in terms of where we come from and where we are today without having the conversation that is inclusive of politics, because it plays such a heavy role in what our day-to-day lives are.
It affects and influences us.
So it's not one wanting to be political, it's one wanting to say, hey, here's the issue that we face, and here is the thing that caused the issue. Right.
In the studio, the excellent company of Mr. Mario Rankin, there's a call online.
Oh,
for those who are listening, we invite you to share. And here's an option, 949-8037. Here's another one. I think Susan's going to pay this month's charges, 1-800-534-8255. She's got to deal with Flo, and they're going to work it out. So she answers, they pay, you call. Let's go to the phones. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon to you, Sterling Bay, and good afternoon to Mr. Mario. A happy New Year to you both.
Yes, sir.
Same to you, sir.
Happy New Year, sir.
Yes. It's what you're saying a while ago. It sort of reflects a lot of things. We have to bear in mind we are in a unique situation in this country. Many people are kind of too young to remember when we moved away, I'd say most people, from our main life, the seafaring life, to another completely diametrically opposite sort of, if you want to put it that way, type of system of going into the financial world. You've got to remember, we really manufacture very little, so the money's made here. It's the ways of handling it that some people will make quite a bit of money out of it, and others will find employment, no doubt, no denying that, and so forth. But we also did something unique that most countries have not done. In the last 40, 45 years, we have quadrupled our population. I can think of no country that has done that. Most countries are less over the last 45 years are just about where they were. So we're in a very unique situation, and we cannot blame that on any one government or anything. It's just the way that we figured things should have gone, that we wanted to attract a lot of business. When I think of the North Sound, all those things, was there's 4,800 or 600 acres of mangroves gone in the last 50 years or so, or less than that, from they started the dredging there. So these are things, and then we see the beautiful condos that are replaced, the mangroves that are gone, and then we see a lot of open space there that has not had anything built on it or so forth. But this is the way of life. It's hard for us now to sort of say, well, I'm going to get up overnight and change all this, because that just will not happen. It's wishful thinking. Wishful thinking. You notice nowadays you're talking about eye-to-eye contact and people speaking. What we've got, if I notice that when a group of people sit down together now, and particularly younger people, you notice that no one is speaking to each other. That's something I see daily and experience. It doesn't happen to me because I'm not interested in that. They're on a cell phone. Tick, 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 tick. Not a thing. You're talking to them and they haven't heard you for maybe 20 seconds before they answer you, and you're sitting right there. And that is a major change. People might not understand that, but because of a 25-year-old growing up in it, a 30-year-old growing up in it, and these are people who might hold assistant managers positions. So you've got to realize it's not just school leavers and so forth that have adopted this way of life. There's no more eye contact. We leave a message. You say this, you say that. I tell people, my children, whatever, that don't leave me a text. I'm not going to read it. If you can't get me on a call, I'll call you back. Just leave a message when I can.
Mm-hmm.
Usually I'm not on the phone. So this is it. It's getting acclimatized. And one thing I'll just leave you with this. A lot of us, particularly my age, we'll talk about Cayman that was, say, 45 years ago when gasoline was 35 cents a gallon and so forth. And $40 could buy you quite a lot of groceries. I'm not asking anyone about that. To nowadays, when we talk about that, and we talk of it as if, well, let's get it back. Let's go back to that. It can't happen. It's just wonderful, beautiful memories. It cannot happen. Let us not try to fool ourselves and fool youngsters that we can go back to that. It will not happen. I'm a realist. We talk about planning and so forth. None of our forefathers would ever think that we would be like this now. They didn't think so. So they for years and years, it was the same thing. We just modernized the vessels from the sailing, beautiful schooners we built. My father's famous schooner builders and so forth. I helped build them several yawls for himself, all that. But the point I'm making is we moved in 45 years where most countries would not have changed. Very few buildings or houses exist from, say, 80 years ago or so, where other countries you can go. And I can think of it, houses and buildings and so forth are still there. So we have moved away dramatically from what we were then. So it's very difficult for people to deal with this and to come to the realization that it's a very different country, but we have to be thankful for what we have. And when we look at other countries, the struggles they're having and so forth, but we just have to learn to fit in to this system. When I try to tell people this is difficult to explain, it would take me hours and hours and take up your time, and you may still not get what I'm trying to say really, but I have it steadfast in my mind. The one thing I'm asking people to realize is this, that we cannot go back to that time. I would love to, right now, but it can't happen. It won't happen. And it's wishful thinking to think that we can. It won't happen to that system or anything like that. That is gone forever. It's just beautiful memories. We can keep it alive with cultural events and trying to restore and keep our identity, which sadly is going away. And there are many ideas I have in mind for a real positive way to do these things. But one of these days, maybe we'll get a chance to explain it. Maybe I won't. Have a wonderful day. I'll listen on.
All right. Hey, thanks very much. Mr. Rankin, we can comment on him, or we can take the break and continue afterwards. Your choice, sir.
Well, I'd rather make a quick comment.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I don't ever recall saying that we wanted to go back to 35 cents gas and $40 worth of groceries that could have filled 3 carts. No one, at least not me, talking about going back to 40 years ago. No one in the studio, I haven't heard anybody said that. I don't know what Mr. Mickey is talking about in terms of we can't go back to those days. No one said we want to go back to those days. We just want to ensure that we have a sustainable Cayman for all Caymanians, no matter what it is that we do. If we're going to implement something, if it's not benefiting all Caymanians, then we're not doing it. It's that simple. We see now that we have institutions that have morphed into their own self-regulated state, where when we decide to say, well, you've been reaping the benefits and generating wealth within your circles for the last 40 years because we've allowed you to. Now we're going to put some mechanisms in place that ensure that Caymanians get a piece of this. Then all of a sudden we want to move back 40 years? No, we should have put it in place 40 years ago that we didn't have this issue today. The problem is that we've had people of that generation who fell flat on their faces and sat on their hands for 40 years and allowed these institutions to morph into what they are today. And this is not the generation to continue that. So therefore, we're speaking up and we're going to make sure that what should have been done 40 years ago starts now. That's all I'm saying.
Fair enough. All right, with that, let's pause and take a break. Certainly invite you to call and share your thoughts with us. I invited Mr. Rankin. I like his perspective, his input. I'm not going to put him on the spot, but some of the things I want to ask about is, the geopolitical landscape, how things are affecting us as they sort of unfold in the world. Maybe even have you, if you wish, to weigh in on the MAX 8. So I saw something in the media somewhere about Boeing and that plane in the hangar somewhere about. But hey, maybe not.
After the break, we'll talk about it.
Listen, man. It's a Monday, it's a Tuesday, it's a Wednesday, it's a Thursday, it's a Friday, whatever the day is, it's a day to make hay. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Every Saturday morning at 9.
Pops, you got to turn around this plane. See my box down there with my parrot and rabbits.
Right here on Radio Cayman.
In Cayman, we are surrounded by water and make our living by farming the sea.
Come join us as we proudly present Caymanian Stories.
The whole problem started when Kanka promised Mrs. June that she would babysit her daughter, Lil Kelly, one Saturday afternoon.
Caymanian Stories
is brought to you by Exquisite Edibles. Call 917-5538 to place your cupcake order today. Exquisite Edibles, making life's occasions a little bit sweeter.
Headlines. With the latest headlines. One of Cayman's bright and shining young stars.
Local, regional, international.
Headlines.
Turning to international news. Updates on the hour between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. on weekdays. All the news when you want it. Tune in to Radio Cayman for hourly headlines of the day's top stories.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
At KFC, we believe you don't have to share a last name to be a family. Whether it's an office party, holiday fete, or family gathering, enjoy KFC's fresh hand-breaded finger-lickin' good chicken. The KFC Festive Feast includes 10 pieces of original recipe or spicy chicken, creamy mashed potatoes, tasty coleslaw, and warm biscuits. KFC's holiday catering menu includes buckets of hot wings, sweet chili wings, or chicken tenders. KFC, it's finger-lickin' good.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, and welcome back to Talk Today, 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. We'll also offer up another option. Hey, you're young and hip and happening and you know the ways of the world, so WhatsApp us, 925-3261. I'm not going to venture with all the other stuff because then you get too much stuff on the table. It's like a good plate of food, Make everything run in together, you can enjoy and savor the flavor. But Mr. Rankin, thanks for your company, sir.
Absolutely. One of the other points that Mr. Hurlson made that I would like to comment on, in my opinion, and let me just state that very clear. This is Mario Rankin's opinion. One of the reasons why we've seen such an increase of population in Cayman was simply because we don't have proper strategic planning in place. We never had one in place. We don't have one now in place. So when you have an open door policy that has systems in place that allow people to come to your shores, participate in certain areas, and then they can become permanent residences, and then they can become status holders, and then they become a Caymanian, you'll find an increased population. I'll tell you why. Because the Cayman Island is probably, if not the safest island in the Caribbean. We have awesome financial system in place. We have great tourism in place. We have great infrastructure in place. Cayman is a melting pot for people to come to our shores, work, participate, and make a better life than where they came from. And there's no real mechanism in there that prevents them from doing that. We've seen where Cayman has become an immigration state. We got over 30,000 work permits now. So it's officially that we're an immigration state. You understand? Because one, our GDP heavily relies on work permit processing fees and all of the likes, and we have industries that require certain labor force that we just can't do without, because we all know at this particular point that we don't harvest enough Caymanians to take every post in every institution. So therefore, we have to bring in labor, and that's just the whole long and short of it. Now, can we do a better job in terms of what that balance of the labor is versus the need? Then absolutely, because we don't need job creation in Cayman. We need job security in Cayman. We need to ensure that certain levels and certain tiers of institutions is reserved for the limited harvested Caymanians. And that's what we fall down on. Those are the things that we fall behind on, because we don't have a strategic plan in place in order to grow our institutions along with our population, so that we could equally coexist in an environment where we're all sustainable. But what we see now, go and find me one single foreclosed home. Go find me one that doesn't say Caymanian on it. Go find it for me. Let me see it. You're not going to find it. It's all Caymanians that are losing homes. So then that tells you that's the whistle that is blowing, that is constantly blowing, that we should be paying attention to. But yet we have people who are trying to deflect by saying the economy is great and this part is great. The economy is good. They're 100% right. But economy is good for who? Who's benefiting from this economic boom? Because I know it's surely not the average Caymanian. That's what I'm talking about. Listen, people always used to criticize Caymanians. Oh, you guys feel entitled. You can believe we must feel entitled. We live in the safest Caribbean island in the world. We have one of the best banking systems and financial industries in the world. We have one of the best tourism products in the world, and we shouldn't feel privileged. We shouldn't feel entitled to be a part of those things.
Let me ask you, right? There's a time, didn't seem that long ago, when there were some people, perhaps not enough, saying that you need to develop within your own people a greater sense of national pride, all right? And, wave the flag, come out to events, stand at attention, don't talk when the national song is being played. Show some respect for the country. So don't litter. Show, and when you travel to other countries, you see the pride, you see the attempts through the use of its national symbols, the waving of its flag, the singing of its anthem and the like, and different things to generate an interest and a pride. You even see, let's use the U.S. for instance, amongst the different states. There is the country pride, but then there is the state pride as well. So I ask that to ask, in the sense of the Cayman context, when there is an exhibition of pride, a word like, well, maybe Caymanians should come first in Cayman, make sure there is an opportunity as industries, sort of come into fold, Caymanians opportunity. People say, oh, you're entitled. And it becomes a bad thing. Why?
Well, and this is where it gets confusing for me personally, because we're not in the majority. It's not a lot of us. It's not a lot of Caymanians. When we say we have an unemployment rate, that's what, 1,200 people? Can you imagine if other countries could have said that they had? And I only use that as an example,
right,
Sterling, because we have to be realists in terms of what it is we have before us, right. We have a completely broken system in terms of where things are allocated and how Caymanians fit into this economic boom. I can assure you that is the case.
But
right?
let me ask, right? Go ahead, and I want to ask you something.
Well, No, ask that first, because what I wanted to share with the public, it goes to speak about something to do with a person's education, which recently happened to a very close friend of mine, and I'm telling you, it keeps me up at night. That one thing kept me up for almost 3 nights because it bothered me so much.
Okay, well, I don't, and this is why I like talking with you, because you share with us things that are not just timely and pertinent, but it could be applicable to all of us, right?
Exactly, and the system, and it's just simple things to fix these small flaws that create the largest hindrances for our Caymanian people.
A couple of things come to mind and why I want to ask, and I would ask people, every single one of us who live and work here, if this is where we call home, let's do what you just said. Make it the very best place. Make it the safest place. Make it where the quality of life is, for instance. And this is something that I find to be very egregious. You walk out to the parks, you walk on the roads, you step in the dog drop-ins. Another word I should use, right? You got dogs that are not leashed and muzzled, right? and you got laws that are not being enforced. Simple as that is, that affects the quality of life. Forget the drivers, right? But look at the education, Mario. Look at the opportunities. You talk about an unemployment issue. How can you have an unemployment issue when you have 50,000 people in the country who either are on work permit or otherwise through their employment would be subject to work permit? They're working with government. They're working with other connected areas.
Well, here's a scenario. And to your point, if we did a poll, if we went into every financial institution right now in Cayman, and we asked, out of the 6,000 people who work in that industry, and we asked every person that was on an executive level in the financial industry, hey, how's life for you? You're going to then chalk up, the life in the Cayman Islands is wonderful. And that may be based on 1,200 people. Again, life is wonderful for that group of people.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But when we have a society and a system that is not strategically set up to ensure that the benefits that come from all of these institutions that enjoy economic success is not somehow across the board affecting the average lives of people. Because at the end of the day, we're playing host to all of this, We are the host to all of this. But yet we are the ones that are holding up the stilts of this economy. Yet we are the ones that are not benefiting. We go to education. I have a very close friends. I won't call any names, and not that they wouldn't want their names called. I just won't call their names.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I have a very close friend that I've known for over 30 years. He have a son that is off to college. Okay, applied for government scholarship. Listen to this now. Applied for government scholarship. Government have certain criteria for scholarships. Okay, I don't have no problem with that. Not because the criteria is in place mean that it's the right criteria, but they have a criteria. Okay, fine. Now the child goes and maintains a certain GPA. Got accepted to the colleges, Got accepted to the colleges prior to attaining the scholarship. Only for the government to tell him, oh, well, you're 20 points below what our requirements is in order to qualify for a scholarship to go to college. Now, let me show you how oxymoron this is. The parents go and show the government, look, he's already accepted to the college. He's ready to go. All he needs is the scholarship. Oh, well, we plan to change that policy sometime next year. This was last year. But right now, this is what it is. There's nothing we can do. So you know what the parents had to do? Those parents had to make sacrifices beyond their control in order to pay for the first semester of that child to leave, just so he didn't miss the opportunity. Yet the government is sitting down on a scholarship fund that could have sent that child to school, but because they have one flaw in their requirement, as opposed to them making a call to say, listen, based on what we've seen here, the child has been accepted to these 3 colleges, and these are the colleges in which we have already agreed that the scholarship fund could be paid to. Why can't we just now change this now and make sure that this child has that opportunity? Because we got the money sitting in the scholarship fund. So just that one instance is what bothers me, to the point that we know for a fact, had that family been politically connected to a certain group of people, that would have never been an issue.
What is it? Kisses go by favors?
So for me, I think that we have an issue, and their situation is not unique. That's what bothers me the most.
Well, that speaks to something that I was going to ask earlier, right? And again, this is a new year, and some people will be offended because he said that, she said that, it was said publicly. But it isn't to be offensive. No, the truth sometimes, the truth cuts deeper, right? But the idea is that you shared something earlier, and I think that one other part of the equation that is missing is the fact, I keep saying this, the populace, especially the registered voter and those eligible to vote, need to become engaged, involved, and informed, not to pander to something, not to try to upset the apple cart just for so, but to be involved and engaged so that we're accountable, we're responsible, we're active, right? And we can do that in a way that isn't violent, in a way that doesn't create unrest or uncivil behavior and the like, right?
Yeah.
But if you sit and you let things transpire, whether it's the legal profession or the financial services or construction or hospitality, whatever that we believe may have transpired 40, 30, 20 years ago, and now Caymanians aren't able to compete, aren't able to get that level of success or financial wealth.
Right.
Well, if we fail to do that in the sciences, in medicine, in whatever the next thing is, then 40 years from now, we'll say, well, for 80 years past, we missed it with this. 40 years, we missed it with this. We keep missing it.
Yeah.
Right? So what's the point? So I want to ask just two things. Right? Again, you and to others, I only use their names only because they're public officials. They made utterances publicly, right? And they hold posts that are somewhat public. The former Minister of Education, Mr. Anglin, was talking about, the employment issue, falls on his portfolio, referencing that, we need how these Caymanians are unemployable. Now, you talked earlier, and again, respectfully, about the people in the financial services sector who come here from other places and they make great wealth. They use their training, their knowledge, they parlay that into a wealth base. Great.
Right.
But what about the people that we see in the supermarkets, in the car parks, in our neighborhoods, who somehow come in and not able to find employment, not able to survive?
Right. And when you look in those institutions, like you just mentioned, when you look in the institutions that bring persons in with these special skill sets, according to them, so therefore they could bunny hop over the Cayman work pool and say, oh, well, you guys don't have this experience, so we need to bring somebody in from overseas so that our business can run adequately. Now, here's where the problem is, right? The problem is right here. On this hand, we have the government and the scholarship fund who is creating hindrances for Caymanians to go and get tooled up in order to come back to participate in this very diverse financial industry or wherever they want to work. We have those hindrances sitting over here. Just one small adjustments can create such a large volume of effect where Caymanians should be enjoying the freedom of scholarship funds once they've attained the proper requirements to get it, right? Now, those institutions in which generate all that level of wealth, who are bringing in all this labor, this special labor, because they say Caymanians don't have the skill set in order to attain these jobs. So we got the hindrances over here for scholarship. Caymanians can't get off because not everybody wealthy enough to send their kids to school. That's why we have scholarship funds.
Even with the wealth, it costs a lot.
Read the definition of scholarships.
Yep.
So again, failure of putting mechanisms in place to extract funds from that very wealthy industry who have created an abundance of wealth for a wide variety of people. The government, and not just this government, all governments and successive governments have failed to put on their bulletproof vests and their ironclad and their gladiator suit and say, listen, guys, here's an industry that all we get from you is work permit fees and licensing fees and service fees. We need something that are far more tangible and something that we can create an environment where Caymanians can enjoy, kids can enjoy, free education on a terrestrial level and healthcare and these sort of things, right? Social welfare and all these things. Listen, the financial industry in this country manages over $3 trillion a year. 25% of that goes into the pockets of those firms that manage these funds. All we need is 5% of that. That don't affect the book of business. All that affect is those people who are reaping the benefits. And this is nothing against them. This is just simply saying, look, you want to operate in the jurisdiction of the Cayman Islands? These are the things that are in place, and these are the things that you have to abide by. Yeah, those funds then will go into scholarship funds so that no child get left behind. Now, one will argue, oh, well, they'll just pack up and go in another jurisdiction. No, they won't. They ain't going nowhere. A platform for beneficial ownership now will run them. That won't.
All right. I'll pick up on that, right? There's a call online, Miss Susan. I think she told me that earlier. And Mr. Rankin, Mario Rankin sits with us. Let's go to the phones. You imagine what going to happen tomorrow if today is only Tuesday. Good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Hey, good afternoon, Dwayne.
Good afternoon, my friend. How are you today?
Okay, man. Doing good. Is there a special topic that you're debating, or?
I'm almost tempted to say, let's talk about it. No, but we're talking about anything that you want to. Mario, you're just gracious with his time and come keep my company.
Okay, man. Okay. Well, I really do appreciate the conversation that's going on, man. Thank you, Mr. Mario. You're giving some good input there, and
you're welcome.
Yeah, I do believe in the concept of giving and receiving. We do have to give to receive. We don't want to give away ourselves to receive back. totally. But Dwayne, I just want to ask one question, and I'm going to close with this. There's a tour company that operates along the 7 Mile Beach running tours on the sidewalks. I would like if you could somehow provide some information as to how a tour company could use a sidewalk when, I'm told that a sidewalk is not for vehicles, it's not for any such thing. And, a few incidents has happened there before. And we are right in the peak of the tourist season. I don't think it is right to have. I mean, I'm not trying to tear anybody down. Everybody has to make a living. Everybody has to, come ahead in life. But, I don't think it's right. It's something that needs to be looked into.
Right. Well, I certainly hear what you're sharing and recognize that even in the past where businesses from restaurants to retail post what we call them, sandwich boards, the little signs in the sidewalks, and people complain that it was an impediment, perhaps unsafe. We have to wonder, are we allowing this laissez-faire approach to not just undermine, the jurisdiction and the perception of a sense of sanity, civility, and law and order, but utilizing public spaces like that probably, without proper licensing? As you shared that, I want to, maybe I can't because I don't have the sufficient information, but someone messaged and said there are particular businesses that have seemed to, let me interpret this way, allowed their retail space to overflow into, surrounding spaces, car parks, surrounding areas. Are they licensed and authorized to use those spaces too? Interesting, no?
Yes, okay, good point, man, good point. Yeah, I mean, like I'm saying, if they could find a different place, it's a good tour. If they could find somewhere else to operate it, man, I don't think that the sidewalks is a good place to operate that tour. I mean, it something kind of dings in my mind saying it's an accident waiting to happen.
Potentially,
yeah. So I'm just trying to give some constructive criticism that it trying to take it to somewhere else where the tour can be conducted more safely.
Perhaps as I listen to you, maybe we can take that on board and realize that from what you're sharing, let's be proactive and potentially, prevent something happening down the road that could result in liability. If nothing else, a black eye,
Exactly.
So we never know. But again, people don't speak out and inform. How do we know what's transpiring, right?
Exactly, man. Well, I'm thankful for your show here that I was able to voice that concern. And like I said to the owners of the company, I have nothing against you, man. I mean, everybody deserves to make a living, but let's do it safely. We can't, I don't think that is exactly safe.
Well, I think you're respectful and responsible and very responsive in sharing it. So thanks for doing that. But always, I can't speak for anybody else, but if I can hear what someone's saying and make it beneficial, you know what? I'm willing to listen. All the best, my friend.
Okay, my friend. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
No, Mr. Rankin, as we go into the break, I'll wait and share two other things, including scholarships, a comment that was shared with me, but also the notion of what's transpiring, right?
Right.
And other thoughts as we look at what's happening here. Because it is a small place, and yet we somehow believe that if we don't address things properly and we ignore it, it'll go away. It's not just that you're sticking your head in the sun and leaving your six exposed, and then you know what can happen then. But it's a case that, you know what, if I don't know and I pretend I don't know, it's all nice. I don't know if that works for anybody else,
Yeah.
It opens you up for a sapapa.
Yeah, sapapa. No, I share the same concerns of the caller, because there are a few things that are happening within in that sector that needs to be controlled and needs to be taken under the umbrella of the Department of Tourism, so that they can make sure that, because that's a part of our tourism product, right? And that creates that experience, whether it's a quality experience or an experience that's not something that people desire. So we need to be very careful in how we allow these things to start popping up all around, and especially in areas where we have the heavy traffic of the stayover passengers as well, right? So, it's important that we get a grip of this thing before it gets out of control, because we don't want to end up like some of the other countries where hecklers are a huge part of the deterrent why, stayover passengers come to our shores. And we've seen now more and more where our stayover tourists is now starting to be vocal and talk about these experiences. I've had a few talk to me over the last couple of months.
Quality over quantity.
Yeah.
All right, when we come back, let's talk about that. Let's also talk about leadership, or the lack thereof, and the like, and the examples.
Right.
Listen, the phone lines are open. The idea is to encourage you to be engaged and informed. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Let Cora keep my ground so clean.
The heart and soul of the Cayman people. Thank you for keeping the culture alive.
Spread the news every day. From East End to Georgetown, down into West Bay.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have, on the island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice. For today's biggest news. Access to information.
Local, regional, international, this is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom team.
Today's biggest news.
Police officers responded to a report of a single vehicle collision on Boddentown Road east of Lakeview Drive shortly after 7 p.m. on Sunday, January 5th. A vehicle had been traveling in the eastbound lane when it left the roadway and collided with a tree. Emergency services attended the location, and the lone occupant of the vehicle was transported by ambulance to the Cayman Islands Hospital to be treated for serious injuries. He remains in critical condition. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines. In news elsewhere, 50 people have been killed and more than 200 injured in a stampede as Iranians gathered for the burial of a leading commander killed in a U.S. drone strike. The deaths in Qasim Soleimani's hometown of Kerman led to the ceremony being delayed. Millions of people are estimated to have packed the streets for a series of funeral processions in Iran. Soleimani's killing has raised fears of a conflict between the United States and Iran. And Puerto Rico has been hit by a 6.4 magnitude earthquake, resulting in at least one death and causing island-wide power cuts, officials say. This most recent quake, which began early this morning, was the strongest in a series of quakes that have damaged Puerto Rico this week. Authorities say the island's power plants suffered some damage and power was shut off as a protective measure. The U.S. National Tsunami Warning Center said there is no tsunami threat. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. And again, publicly thanks to Miss Susan. You imagine what happens if she retires, man? Yeah. She'd probably just go to the back and enjoy it. The Martin song, Back to the Back again. Publicly, thanks, Miss Susan, for putting up with us. And thank you to Mr. Mario Rankin for your company, man. Your friendship and for your willingness, as they call it, just prior shared. Your counsel, your willingness to say publicly, hey, here's something to think about. Can I ask of you, though? Put a few more things on the table in terms of public accountability and public commentary, right? So in this capacity as chairman, or no, they call it president of the Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Biles, a few years back,
right,
talked about a priority in his platform is the underemployment of work permit holders. Now, when I heard that, and then I remember the ESO came out, they were talking about the, work permit holders being either raised as unemployed or the underemployment, and I thought, okay, if you have someone who is, for argument's sake, a physician, right, and has come to Cayman and decides that they want to be a horticulturist or they just want to work in the hospitality sector by choice, could we consider that as being underemployed? You qualified, you have the skill set, you can do this job, but you choose not to for whatever the reason, right? Now, if you have a Caymanian, a permanent resident who's saying, listen, I'm a qualified physician, a lawyer, an accountant, I have an MBA, I was working, but for whatever reason I'm not, I was made redundant, and I can't find employment, well, unemployed, because you're actively seeking employment, you're willing and able to work. So you should be registered as such. Or you're employed, but right now I have, 2 or 3 hours a day for 2 or 3 days a week, but really I want to get back into my field, law, whatever that is, right? So you're underemployed.
Right.
Why is it then that the chamber and even the recognition of our official statistics will focus and make such a big deal out of the underemployment of people who are on a work permit and pay little or no regard for the challenges of those here who are? And I go back to the guys we see in the parking lots here, supermarkets and elsewhere, who are saying, boy, I could use a little help. So what are we doing?
The fact that we had a previous chamber president highlighting that issue tells me that we have a major issue. It's not the chamber job to do so. No, I'm not saying that Mr. Boyle shouldn't have mentioned it.
No.
That's not what I'm saying.
No, that's not at all.
I'm just saying that's not their remit.
Yeah.
This shouldn't be, that's not something that they should have been bringing to the table or highlighting. I think that because it's not a huge population of Caymanian workforce, that the government should have a very strong grip on terms of what Caymanians are capable of, what they're qualified to do, and what jobs are available. I mean, Sterling, no work permit is granted without going through a board.
That apparently we approve.
So therefore, we have a very intimate relationship with the jobs on this island because we know where they are, and the jobs that Caymanians don't have, we grant permits for. So for me, I just think that it's hard pressed for me to go down the road believing that the government just not aware of these issues.
Well, let me ask, not so much
because they are,
to you, right? But just ask, and maybe because it's the first part of the year, and as we make our resolutions, we resolve that we're going to be more engaged, we're going to be more informed. Let me ask, is it that we're not only are we unwilling to talk about the elephant in the room, that's a saying that apparently people, but we don't even know that there's an elephant in the room.
Well, when governments take the advice of a business community that is thriving and use that as an air marker on what the island is doing, that's when we have this false sense of what's taking place in the Cayman Islands.
Right.
Because whereas it's not the wrong thing to say that this industry is thriving and the economy is booming, it's also not the right thing to say, knowing that there is a large sector of our society who are struggling, and because the cost of living, or for whatever reasons, it's struggling. And the government's responsibility, and only responsibility, and I say this all the time, is to create a sustainable environment for its people. Now, if we were to take a holistic look at all of the issues that causing these things to happen, the government would have their job cut out for them, because then they would have to do real work. Because it's easy for them to get out there and say the economy is doing great and we've done all of these things and this is what's taking place, because those things are self-running. The government not running any of those financial institutions. They're just making sure that certain things stay in place, that they continue to make the money that they're making.
Yeah, I want to pick you up on a second in relation to the roles of the MLAs from the perspective. Now, I probably get accused of defending MLAs, right?
And remind me to share your story that I got just recently from an MLA that I had to put him in his place.
Okay.
When he asked me, or no, not when he asked me, when he said to me, "Oh, I've been hearing these things for a long time," and he asked me, "How do we fix them?" And I said, "It's very simple."
Okay.
And
he was told to resign. I was just kidding.
Well, here's the thing, right? He wanted to know. How come Caymanians are not aware of the hospitality industry and the real estate industry and blah blah blah. And I said to him, well, because there's no comprehensive training within the schools. Then he says to me, what are we going to do? We've been hearing about this all the time. I said, well, wait a minute. You are elected. You know what? You know why they're not in the schools? Because of failed politicians. Because politicians has not instituted. Get the Minister of Education right now to write a bill and say, look, from middle school onward, we have to have a comprehensive training of hospitality, real estate, and all of the other industries that you don't need to go to college to get a job in to be successful in our country. Sterling, if I had knew about real estate when I was leaving high school, I would probably have one of the biggest real estate companies in Cayman. If I had known the importance of the hospitality industry when I was leaving school, ladies and gentlemen, I knew that I wasn't going to college. I knew that our family never had the resources. I knew that I was not going to college. I knew that from before I left high school.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that I inspired to. It was a realization. It was a reality that I had to sober up to.
Yeah, which is unfortunate.
Right. But you know what I was told? Go and buy one tie and one shirt and go and work and be a teller in the bank. You know how much money I made being a teller? $1,275. $700 a month, right?
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is, Sterling, is that nobody taught my generation how important hospitality was. If you weren't born in a family like yourself, who have always been involved with tour operating and boats and whatnot and fishing and those things, you just weren't aware of the level of wealth that comes out of that industry.
But since you said that, I'll share something with you in relation to that, and it's still to this day. Hopefully it'll cause some of us to maybe take stock. But with that, our guest, our companion, our good friend, Mr. Mario Rankin, sits with us. There's a caller online, and today we still take a sour cake today, right? Yeah, man. So no problems, people really came on. We love food. Let's go to the phones. Hey, good afternoon, welcome. You want to talk today?
Good afternoon.
Hey, my good friend. How are you today, man?
All right, man.
All right, I hope you're enjoying yourself, man.
Yeah, man. I am.
All
right.
Good stuff.
Cool weather, nice.
Yeah, boy. Good stuff.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Mario.
Afternoon. Happy New Year.
Yeah, same to you. Yeah. Do a lot of talking today, man.
But sometimes, in order to hear, one must talk.
Yeah, talk plenty. Yeah.
What's on your mind?
No, but so what he's saying about, training the kids.
True.
Maybe we should stop training them to get a job and try training them how to make money. You understand?
I hear. Develop entrepreneurial spirit, create employers as much as employees.
That's right.
Okay, all right. You actually give me a good segue into what I wanted to share with Mr. Rankin. But go ahead, man. I'm listening to you.
Yeah, and back to my industry, or what I trying to see accomplished here, right, is because that one industry can employ everybody on the island. That one industry can take over the education department. Pay for the education, pay for the the medical, the insurance. Blow them straight off the water. You understand? You basically spitting in our face when you always telling us that we must continue follow in the same thing. You understand? And you got people out there that they be like, yeah, I cool with it, but I don't want to see it get nowhere. You understand? And those kind of people, those are the ones that they really got to start running them out, or just keep your opinion, because you're not helping nobody when you're really keeping on the oppression of that kind of thing. And they know what I'm talking about. They know that starts from a young age. You understand? That you might be sitting around somebody, and they come back, or everybody. Just that one problem there. That's a big hiccup in society. You understand? That you can't be friends or can't talk to nobody just for that. And for me, I would love to see it where you get trained manners first. First 4 years in school, you get trained pure manners. And the next, you go on and you try to learn how make money. You get that entrepreneurship development going on in the Cayman Islands. And enough people, they don't like to see that. They like to see that way they're going to come up with a charity. They'd rather make a charity. They say that they're going to help kids get a job than try to teach people how to make jobs. You understand? A bunch of scammers. Sorry. Have a good day.
All right. Well, listen, appreciate you sharing that thought with us. But Mario, from that perspective and what you shared earlier, the idea of, for some reason, the failures to date of successive governments of our country, of making our people aware of the benefits, the rewards, not just the financial successes, but the significant contributions to our GDP, to our our country, in hospitality, in real estate. What if that's deliberate? What if it's that even for those who know that there's significant money in it, but for some reason we we discourage them. We deliberately make it difficult. Let's take real estate, for instance. So let's assume that there's a young Caymanian, let's say it's a college grad, for argument's sake, who wants to get into real estate for whatever reason, right? Could that person as easily get in, get licensed, be a part of the process as someone who comes from overseas? What if it's harder?
Well, you see, and I can tell you, with real estate, and that one there is one of my pet peeves. I can tell you right now.
Okay.
First of all, we need to dissolve Cereba. We need to abandon that cartel. That's number one.
Okay.
Right? You don't need to be a college grad to sell real estate.
Right.
Okay. Because if you can sell a car, you can sell a piece of land.
Mm-hmm.
You know why? Because it's the same process. You have to make sure that there's no liens. You got to make sure that there's a clear title, and you got to make sure that you can transfer it.
And with the real estate, the lawyers got to do all the heavy lifting, right?
Again, you don't need a lawyer to sell real estate. Again, that's another mechanism that's been put in place for lawyers to make money, and for this one to make money, and for that one to make money. Right. You don't. Sterling, if you got a piece of land for sale and I say how much you want for it, and you tell me whatever that figure is, and I negotiate, and then we come to an agreement. All it takes is for me to transfer the funds to you, and you to transfer the land to me.
We have one of the best land registry systems in the world.
So at the end of the day, this whole perception that selling real estate is complicated is a deterrent from an average school leaver who wants to get involved with something that can create their own personal wealth, like real estate, like the tourism industry, like the hospitality industry. The problem is that we've allowed that industry to make its own rules and create its own umbrella away from the regular society. And our governments and successive governments and all governments has been there to aid and abet them to do so. So REBA need to be abolished. You telling me that I can't sell a condo without going through a real estate company? You're telling me that I can't build a house and sell it without having a developer's license? You're telling me that I can't do anything to better put myself in a financial position without going through an institution that has no impact on what my cost of that development is? These are the things that we need to start having conversations about. Now, granted, you got all these realtors out there sitting down now scratching their head, we don't know what Mario talking about. Well, I can tell you this right now, 2021 when we change government and put in like-minded thinkers, people who are gonna put things in place to ensure that Caymanians enjoy a lot of this wealth that has been going around. Listen, if you're not a Caymanian, you can't sell real estate in the Cayman Islands. That'd be the first law I pass. And number two, there is a simple set of regulations that you have to acquire in order to sell real estate, and they're very simple. So we need to stop acting like these problems don't exist, and we need to stop acting like we know what the solutions are. The solutions are very easy. Put comprehensive training in the schools. Let me tell you something about manners and respect. I was raised by two Christian old ladies, you understand? And I know manners and respects, but it was until I got faced it. It was until I stood my ground. It was until I said, no. Thank you very much, sir, but I don't accept that I got any headways in life. Yes, you must always be respectful. You must always respect your elders. I'm not saying that you're not supposed to be those things, but you must always be firm. And you must always be true to what you believe in. At the same token, some people might view that as being disrespectful or not having manners. But at the end of the day, thank you very much. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Right.
At the end of everything. So I understand what's happening in Cayman. I understand totally what's happening today. Listen, there's some simple laws and some simple policies that need to be put in place, and Cayman would be the shining gem of the Caribbean. This would be a prime example of whatever other country would want to turn their country into. The problem is that we have institutions who have lobbied over the last 40 years to keep the status quo the way it is and keep the oppression of those people. You think they want to make sure that Mario educated and a generation of Mario and generation to come educated to participate in the environment that they've already carved out for themselves? You look at the financial industry, you look at all these other industries, they have carved out their own little nest egg. Yeah. They don't want smart Caymanians coming in there. You ever heard about you're overeducated? You ever heard that? But you can't work here because you got too much.
What does it say? Little learning is a dangerous thing, eh? Mario, a couple of callers online. Let's pick up the phones. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you for calling.
Hello.
Hi. Afternoon, sir. How are you? Happy New Year to you.
Afternoon.
Yeah, doing this Elvis here, Mario. Happy New Year to you, man.
Happy New Year, sir.
Happy New Year, man. Hope all is well in the bracket.
Good to hear from you.
Yeah, man. Oh, but listening to the real estate, I always wonder, but I know that you said that they got that carve out because now my good friend told me this. He's dead and gone now. Terry McGluck. McLaughlin Little Cayman had a real estate business, so him and his partner, which was an American lady, they were selling land, they were doing good, so they had this big sale come up that the commission was like $50,000. So the lady told him, say, Perry, you let me go do this one, because this is a real big sale, and you don't want to lose this. Perry said he looked at the woman and said, woman, listen to me. I've been selling ganja, hiding from the police from time I was a boy. And you tell me that I can't go stand up on a piece of beach land and sell it? You got to be crazy. You want that commission, but it not happening today. And that's simple. You might tell me that Cayman, you can't sell a piece of that. And look at you can't steal it. You want to go and sell it.
So
but
true.
They don't want to Cayman in them, my friend.
They don't. No, they don't.
It's just like the business. I talk to politicians. I talk on things. Look here. The Caymanians don't want to get in the waitress and bartending thing because they are telling that lie that you're only making $6 an hour. But you look at the waitress and the bartenders that are working on the 7 Mile Strip. They are living in condos, you know, friend.
Mm-hmm.
They ain't living like the poor Filipino and Jamaican 6 or 7 star room, you know.
That's right. You're right. You're 100% right.
Yeah, but you see what happened until we, the government, make the bank realize this gratuity is part of your salary.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what keeping the Caymanians out of the tourism. And it's orchestrated that way, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be changed. It has to be.
It can be changed.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah, it's just like I told him about the weed. No weed, no vote. And I told him yesterday, we now wait and tell. I told him, I said the CPR group, undergot college educated people with honor, you know. Well, I got a CGB, the and your babies. We now went to college, but we can vote. And we poll in the stream. Like I told him, there's only one politician there that is willing to go to the MLA, and that's Mr. Ezra Miller. You see? But the rest of them, I told them, and bring a motion before the election. None more promises this time. Because things not going on. I waking up. I going to wake up the young Caymanians. It's time for the change. Caymanians got to get something out of all this money that's circling. Thank you, young man. Thank you.
All right. Thanks very much. I certainly want to engage. I'm told we got a couple of callers online, but a quick PSA to take. To the callers, respectfully, hold tight. We'll get to you right after.
Stay tuned. Don't forget to tune in Monday through Friday for Radio Cayman's local evening sports report during the 6 p.m. news hour.
Taking a look at Radio Cayman's local sports, I'm Dion Anglin.
It is proudly brought to you by King Sports Center, providing your fitness, recreation, and relaxation needs.
For the record.
For the record, a fresh approach for information that matters to you, the people. Hear from the government, the opposition, independents, and other experts on issues and solutions that affect you.
For the record.
Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, tune into 89.9 and 93.9 FM.
For the Record is brought to you by Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. Cayman Pharmacy Group, with a location in West Bay and professional pharmacy at CTMH Doctors Hospital. The Cayman Pharmacy Group has a location for you just around the corner. And Seaboard Marine, with over 35 shipping ports, find your shipping solution by calling 949-4977 or visit seaboardmarine.com for competitive rates.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. In the studio, Mr. Mario Rankin is our guest. Let's go to the phones. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, dear.
Hey, friend. How are you today?
Okay.
All right, man. Thanks for sharing with us, man.
Good afternoon to Mario.
Afternoon, sir. Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year, man.
All right.
God gave these members of the Legislative Assembly the power to help their own people. And they see and they know exactly what's going on that's not right. And they continue not to do what they need to do to correct it and helping us.
Mm-hmm.
But I wish the people had the power to put every one of them in prison. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks very much, son. And with that, let's go to the next line. Welcome. You're on Talk Today. Hey, good afternoon.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, man.
I guess where I joined the conversation is where it comes to the population.
Mm-hmm.
And if we step back a bit, from 1802, we had 933 people in the Cayman Islands.
Mm-hmm.
And we move forward to 1970s, and we have 10,000 people in the Cayman Islands. And we move forward yet again to 2017, where we have 63,000 people. I think I'm at a point where I will definitely advocate for at least 70,000 people for the Cayman Islands. If you look at our closest cousin or neighbor, Bermuda, which is having a struggle with even its population and then in terms of its cars and what has contributed to the problems in its society. And I think for Cayman, if we don't have a limit or set a goal, then I think we're setting ourselves up for chaos and the future generations. What say you?
Are you?
Well, I think that, without having a proper plan and structure in place, we look at population, right? And we look at the diversity of what we have here, over 130 different nationalities. We found ourselves in a situation where we didn't have anything proper in place in order to mitigate this intake of individuals, how they and what part they what role they would play in our society, what part they would play. In 1972, Ruddy Selsar, which was a hotel management individual, he wrote an article that said it.
Mm-hmm.
He said that another 100-room hotel in the Cayman Islands is not the solution. He said that if you continue down that road, you would find yourself where you have to import cheap labor in order to accommodate, because you don't harvest enough Caymanians to take those jobs. And I think that got lost in translation, because he also spoke about what I spoke about earlier when he said there need to be a comprehensive training program in place for Caymanian people to understand the importance of the hospitality industry.
But if you go back, right, Commissioner Gerard, made similar utterances during his tenure. But most societies seem to understand the importance that if you're not only looking out for the opportunities of your future generations, but to preserve social stability and harmony, you need to make sure that you get the mix right.
Absolutely. And so we're talking about 1972, when we had 10,000 people.
Right.
And now we have close to that golden number, 70,000.
Mm-hmm.
If it hasn't been put in place for the last 40 years,
right,
then we kind of got to ask what's happening with our leadership, because I can't really turn to nobody else.
Exactly.
I'll leave on it there. I'm for 70,000.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah, and you see the point that he's made. It goes back to what we started out the conversation on, is that it's hard to talk about these things and not include leadership, and that's politics. Now, we find ourselves in a very precarious situation because whereas we see where the government is leaning towards growing the population, we know that we have a lot of infrastructural strain in terms of traffic and participation in certain areas where it's just not conducive to an environment anybody wants to be around. The beaches, Stingray City, stores, shops. I mean, you ever been to a supermarket on a Saturday? These are the social economic issues that we're having because of this influx of population. Now, No, I'm not saying that there isn't things being done in order to try to assist in some of these areas. The problem is that we are a reactive society and not a proactive society. And when we look at the things that we react to, as opposed to the things that we could have been proactive on to have prevented a lot of those reactions, we could have been a lot further ahead. And that all goes all the way back to policy, procedure, legislation, and requirements. These are the things that we fall down on. We see these industries exploding with no real strategic plan on how to deal with these things as they go along. Right. So that's why I say that at some point, we're not trying to go back 40 years. We want to make sure that the next 40 years is sustainable. We want to make sure that we put the necessary things in place now that should have been in place a long time ago, that we move forward and under that umbrella, as opposed to letting it continue to be what it is. Because I don't accept we should just accept what it is and do our best to accommodate. Like the first caller called in and said,
roll on play did.
I don't accept that. I do not accept that because
Mr. Rankin, we do have a call online. Let's go. Yeah,
oh,
I mean, nice. Susan was talking. I was like paying attention. Let's go to the phones. She also tells us we got a WhatsApp, but we'll get to that in a second. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Hello.
Hey, how are you, man?
Good afternoon. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year,
man.
Yeah, man. Excellent. Sterling. Apologetic. I've been off 7 weeks, right? I got a little vacation. But I can stop by the studio.
Wow.
But I go back. I go back to work, right? I heard Mark Levis calling about 5 minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
He have a petition, right? In the block. I have one here. That's his name. Right? And people has to sign it. Some people, right? And I force it, I leave it. There's an establishment. I have mine. I care about me. Okay? If you make a super show left. Trying to give you 2 minutes now.
Go ahead, man.
Why I lied. We follow a decade of austerity. Right? Yeah, strict or severe discipline. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
The whole democracy mainstream, that changed. Right?
Right.
The public came on though for the last 15 years. A lot of red tape and bureaucracy was amended. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So that trend kind of like repent. You know, ricochet. So a lot to have affirmative action, contrary views. You can mend that. So come from. So it's still a fix to your head. So come from, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I got one more thing now. I've his petition, right? With his herb thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It recognizes the feasible way, right? So whatever cause happiness, you are a fix. And not about part about their life and this and that. I tell you, so I spent a 1,050 on a draw. And people in certain lifestyle, rather, they do other drugs, right? White collar jobs, rather. I went St. Nature's 9 years of my life, private school. That's where I get my education from. And I transferred to the government system. See? So, like I said, education is fundamental, intellectual, right? Academia. But in Cayman, that's not out. Yeah? You are overqualified, right? You don't have much experience practically. Yeah? But you got a theory. You're a formula. So give me 1 minute now.
Yeah, man.
Look at the point now. It's a leap year, they say.
Mm-hmm.
Right? A lot of changes. All I seen by one it came on now. Because stuff carefully. Right? We can't be in a conundrum. Right? Like some maze. So we got focus. And the problem came on now. There's a unity. Right? From the early that's coming up, the education was a political arena. From the early that's coming up. The 92 coming up. You know what I'm saying? Recently they talk about education, sanitize this, sanitize that. No, sanitize. You see where I come from, right?
Mm-hmm.
So too much cheese or less Indian or vice versa, not a problem. So like I said again, like my final thing I got to say now. This herb thing, that pedopedy thing, we don't need no interdiction to fight that. That's simple. The whole world gaining toughness from it. Yeah? And the force about do nothing, but it's logical. See? Those alternative revenues, it have education, health, beautification, infrastructures. Or who want to call the beaten? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, man.
You got to step up in the game. Stop encroaching people's lives. You stop playing on people's lives and down people's lives. You know what I'm saying? So, I just rush my friend. You know, it's done. When I'm off again, I touch base with you in the studio.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Anytime.
Sterling, you know me, I better person. I'm not for a person now.
No, man.
I'm not
Anytime.
for a person. I better person if it's good for him.
Yeah.
That'll go.
That would
All
go,
right?
man. Blessings, man. Blessings. All the best. All right. Listen, the phone lines are open. And certainly you can call and share your thoughts with us. As I enjoyed the good company of Mario Rankin. We have a WhatsApp. Miss Susan said it was shared with us. Let's read it. All right. You want to read it, Miss Susan? No? Okay. She's your best players can read. I think we did, yeah. Even those of us that, didn't go to Miss to school. Says good afternoon. I have disagreed with Mario in the past, but I give right where right is due. Mario is 100% right, and he's spot on. We need Cayman to come back to Caymanians. 140 different nationalities here. We are endangered species in our little island. Says Wake Up Cayman. So, Mario, as I listen to the calls, as I reflect on the sentiments, the notion that we live in what I think is a wonderful place now.
Yep, I agree.
I want to believe that wherever you live and work, you got to do your very best to make it the very best that it can be. If that's your home, what I say, where your bread is buttered, hopefully you try to, take care so you don't get John Joe, right? But then the notion is that it's for all of us who live and work here to do everything, to take care of our own, so that we, clean up our yard, so that our yard is in a hogsty. We don't throw things out the windows of our cars. We don't litter, because that's our contribution, right? And maybe we get to a point where the norm is a safe society where there are certain things that don't transpire because the society sees it as being offensive. Take, for instance, it's not about whether you find being on the bandwagon against smoking in public places good or bad. Mm-hmm. It became a time, over a period of time, where you don't smoke in these spaces. Right. It didn't happen overnight. The concerns that many shared, bars and restaurants would be affected because they can't smoke. What was the outcome? They actually increased in business.
In business, yeah.
Those of us who have friends who smoke or who smoke ourselves step aside like we used to before and say, let me come downwind of you so I don't blow the smoke on you, right? Mm-hmm. Now, it just shows what can and should happen if we're civil, if we're respectful, if we're responsible, right? And we're responsive. But let me ask then, this notion of leadership and lack of leadership, political leadership in our churches, in our communities, in our civic organizations and the like. But before I get there, the idea that we're creating a divide. You talked earlier about scholarships, right? Right. So we may have seen through press releases and maybe through other things that over and during the Christmas break, there were a couple of functions for overseas students. A group of students assembled and met somewhere, and another group of students, the ones who attend universities in the UK, were hosted at the governor's residence. Right. Why the divide? Why can't all overseas students be hosted in one spot? Now, I didn't reach out to anybody to ask. I just thought, wait a minute. That's a division now. It is. Something not right. I mean, you're either your overseas student or you're not.
Once you're not in Cayman studying, you're overseas. Because you got to travel overseas to get where you're going.
That's what
we're an island. Yeah. It's just that simple. No, again, I can't answer that question.
No.
But I do know that I share your sentiments, and I too find it very alarming that we would have that divide on that very small platform, where we are accommodating or we are showing some level of gratitude for overseas students, but yet it's there's a difference.
Okay, well let me ask, right? In fact, let me ask deliberately. Let's just see if it would offend some people. So what if we had if you attended a local institution, UCCI, CCI Law School, or whatever else that we have here, and that was because I think we hosted by His Excellency at Governor's House, or was it called Government House, whatever? Okay, hosted there. I think that's a big deal, right? Especially for students. Mm-hmm. So if the premier or the speaker of the house or somebody else had a function like that and hosted just a group of students, let's say they were just the Caymanian students, would people be offended? Would they say, "Oh, that's division. That's being preferential. That is showing entitlement," as opposed to having one group of students, all overseas students, being hosted by these people in this place, right? One thing. Well. So if it was the other way around, if you were going to school at UCCI, you get here. But I wonder what if any, would be the public's sort of perspective on that?
Well, my personal opinion is, Sterling, is that obviously for me, whether the government have one gig for everybody, or whether they have two, and for whatever reasons, I find that to be far down on the priority table for Mario.
I hear you.
I think that we need to be far more focused on who has the eligibility to go. Those who are, because they are family or friends with certain groups or people, that they're not allowed to. We know that our scholarship fund should be managed by an independent body. That once kids come in with that proper level of education, that they are now accepted to certain colleges. Because I think what it should be, Sterling, is this. And this is my opinion. I could be wrong, or it could be tweaked, or it could be amended. I don't know. But here's what I'm saying. If a child leaves school with a certain GPA that he or she has been accepted to an institution overseas, and that family doesn't have the means to send that child to that, and they apply for a scholarship, that scholarship criteria should only be based on the schools in which that child had been accepted to. So what I mean is that the battle have already been won. The child already maintained a certain GPA that allows them to be accepted to a certain institution that they apply to. Then the government now the independent body, in my opinion, the minute we leave it in the hands of a ministry, then people become victimized. Because then those people. Sorry.
Yeah, they're ringing now. Oh, okay, man.
Yeah, my bad. I apologize. I have a ringing in my ear. That
say someone calling me. Just kidding. But let me jump in here, man.
But what I'm saying is that once we have an independent body that is non-biased to any individual, that looks at only the merits of that child being accepted to a college, right, so that they can further their education, that scholarship fund should be allocated accordingly.
So an objective, impartial approach to this based on a set of sort of, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, because if we play police on your GPA, if we the ones that are playing the police on that, then we find a reasonable excuse to say, oh, you can't go.
But this is the thing, right? And I hear you, and I'm not going to belabor, certainly not going to get argumentative, right? But the priority should be, as you shared. But if we go back to the perception of the division, so students who attend UK universities can be feted here, other overseas students got to go here, right? Now, you may say here is better than here, or here is better than here. It doesn't really matter, right? But if we start and we accept that there are divisions in certain things, even at that level, right? Then it's easy for it to come up to the point where it's now scholarships, for instance. Well, you can't get a scholarship because you're not a West Bayer, or you're not a West Bayer of the Ebanks family, or of the Borden family, or whatever it is, right? I'm just picking on them because I'm Ebanks, right?
Yeah.
But the notion is that if we are a little bit unlike what you share, listen, we're going to educate our students locally and overseas. I believe it's important, right?
What I would like to know is that, and if it hasn't taken place yet, we need to start doing this. I would like to know if there's any data that has been collected over the last 15, 20 years on, one, the number of students that are coming out of school, graduating from high school, who has the academic capability to go on for tertiary education, who falls in a category that requires scholarship funding or some assistance.
Right.
That's number one. And number two, how is it the families or the kids or those persons are vetted in terms of who is eligible for a scholarship fund? Because I know that there is a lot of cases where families are financially equipped to send their kids to tertiary education who have gotten scholarships.
Right.
Which what it does is it creates a gap for those kids who genuinely need the help. Now, again, like I said, and these things predominantly happen because of political favors. And for me, I think that once we have an independent body that reviews and regulates this scholarship fund, I think that if we haven't been taking that data, like every year when kids graduate, we need to start taking data of how many kids are coming out of school who are not able to pay for their tertiary education, right? Who falls into a certain category, who has the academic qualifications to move forward and don't get that assistance, because then we can have a strong grip as to what our issue is and how big the issue is.
Right.
And then we could then have a very reasonable approach on how to solve this problem. But if we don't have the data, if we don't have the information, we don't know how many people are falling through the cracks. We don't know how many people who are not allowed to go off to get this extended education to come back to be positive contributors within our society. And then we'll be labeled with this whole notion that we're lazy people and we don't want to participate. Listen, we have so many capable Caymanians who have missed that golden opportunity to go off to further their education, to come back home in order to get involved in some of the institutions that they're saying we're not qualified to be a part of.
Right.
And again, we have other issues too that are in place that we need to deal with, because we have these institutions who are guarding this institution for themselves,
right,
and for their friends and people from back home. We've seen that these are real things, ladies and gentlemen. I am not making this up.
Yeah. But one thing that, and to your point, we know that the Scholarship Secretariat has said publicly that they've introduced a means test to try to assess certain things, right? To make sure, like you said,
right.
But education is expensive. Well, ignorance is even more costly.
Exactly. And you know what happens as a result of educating your people without any real mechanisms to ensure that they're integrated within the social environment and the institution that is generating that wealth? We're creating a elitist society. People, because there's no sense in me having a bachelor degree or a PhD if I can't get a job.
But see, this is why maybe afterwards when you come back we can talk about it, because this is why, just without any great sort of desire to have in a public discussion, I would like to see all our people, right, as they leave high school, and even when in high school, automatically understand that they're going to continue on for the studies and different paths, so that the education, like you shared, everybody has an education. Oh, you got a degree? I remember Mr. Charlie Farrington doing a political campaign once said, he got a degree, I got 2 or 3, 4 then. Right? So we got some very intelligent people who, have degrees in finance as well as in, the sciences, right?
Yeah.
All right. As we go to the break, perhaps if the Scholarship Secretariat doesn't mind me saying, quick reminder, if you're applying for an overseas scholarship, the deadline is the end of this month.
See?
So it's not that far away. Get your forms in, get your information there. The deadline for overseas scholarships is the 31st, midnight. Let's pause and take a break. When we come back, more talk today.
Get fit for 2020 with up to 45% off gym memberships from King Sports Center's Powerhouse Gym. Let's go. Save on individual 1-year gym memberships for $375 and 2-for-1 membership specials at $650. That's a 1-year membership for one person for $375. Or save even more with a 2-for-1 membership at $650. Jumpstart your health and fitness goals today. Offer valid at King Sports Center Powerhouse Gym now through January 15th.
Preventing dengue is as simple as preventing mosquito bites. Use a mosquito repellent, wear protective clothing, and stay indoors during early dawn and dusk when mosquitoes are most active. Control the places around you where mosquitoes breed. Remove stagnant water in outdoor and household settings. As a weekly habit, persons should change the water in vases, clear the water in saucers under potted plants, and ensure air conditioner drip trays are free of stagnant water. Outdoor objects capable of holding water should be kept empty and preferably disposed of or put into dry storage if not used. These include open bottles and tins, watering cans, buckets, empty paint tins, and old vehicle tires. Do your part to control the spread of dengue. The dengue virus is an infectious disease transmitted through mosquito bites. Symptoms may come on as early as 4 days or as late as 3 weeks following an infection. There is no vaccine or specific medication to treat dengue. Symptoms of dengue include high fever, headache, pain behind the eyes, joint and muscle pain, and rash. If persons have any of these symptoms, they should go to the nearest health center or hospital. It is advised to drink lots of liquids and avoid medication that contains aspirin.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you for joining us. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. Okay, Miss Susan, how does it sound out there, okay? Because, man, I just know, I don't know if they're ringing in my ears or what it is. It was good and loud. No, it's like, I got to shout. Anyway, Mario Rankin sits with us, man. Thanks very much, honestly, for sharing. I hope nobody accused you of keeping bad company when you keep company with me on the air, especially. Hopefully, you don't get in trouble too much for.
Maybe the other way around. I'm going to accuse you of being bad company.
Remember, I'm a SB. What is it? Nothing but company. No. All right, but listen. As I listened to you, and I was thinking of some of the comments that people were sharing with us, right? And the idea that it's a new year. The notion that, again, I think we need to be responsible for ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? Be willing to be held accountable for what we do. But if I take care of my yard, right, then maybe the place look better because I'm not messing it up. Then the next person does the same and so on, and then eventually gets to that point. Many of us, though, we are so busy minding other people's business that we don't pay attention to our own stuff. Right? There's some scripture about that as well. But let me ask, back to the sentiments with respect to the MLAs. Now, I don't want anybody to accuse me of defending them now and say, oh, that he friends, right? Because then they might say, no, we're not friends with him. But again, granted, just generally speaking, people in leadership, politicians no less, sometimes we accuse them of being arrogant. Sometimes they act with great arrogance and they're condescending and false and all the things, right? Fair enough, right? But why do we believe that they be all and end all? Why don't we, as the populace, say, but wait a minute, you don't have the blueprint on all the answers. We expect them to be everything. And then we complain when they're not anything. Because, well, I don't know about you, but it's hard to be in more than one place at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you on that, and I agree with you to a certain extent. But at the end of the day, that MLA have done quite a job to convince a portion of individuals that they are the guy or the girl.
Yeah.
So therefore, when you fall behind on what they perceive as your responsibilities, then they have all rights to ask you what's going on, why you're not doing what you say you were going to do. So for me, I think it goes hand in hand with we understand that the opposition and MLAs are not part of the sitting government, so there's very little.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that you can't bring a motion every week.
Fair enough. But okay, even with that.
And be vocal about it.
We had a constitution 10 years ago, whatever it was, right? That honestly, not really what the paper were printed on.
Agreed.
It's just a failure. But we accepted it. We allowed it.
Hold on. Let me stick a 30-second pin right there.
Go right ahead.
So for clarity, in 2009, the then government, which is now the same PPM, had a constitutional reform that they forced people to exit through an exit poll into a station where you had to vote on that constitution, that reform. So, ladies and gentlemen, for clarity, today, the referendum that sits in place, that we've triggered, have to attain 50 plus 1 of the entire registered electorate in order to be successful. Now, let me tell you what they did in 2009, which is contrary to what we have to do today, which is why I object when you say that it was accepted.
All right.
The government of the day counted 50% plus 1 of the participation of that new constitution.
That was changed at 11th hour, right?
Listen now, they did not use the rule of 50% plus 1 of the entire registered voters. They used 50% plus 1 of those people who voted on that day, ladies and gentlemen. So they technically passed the constitution that did not have the consensus of the Cayman Islands people.
Yeah, it's a lower threshold, and I think
exactly. So we must be very, very, clear on how that process took place. So again,
thank you for that. And
my objection is sustained. Just check it.
No overrule. No. But again, it comes back to where I ask us as the registered voter in particular, but as a society, to pay attention. Mr. Bill Adam, I think there are a lot of us respect not only his insight, his willingness to share publicly after reading, understanding, and saying, okay, here's a perspective, right? But sadly, people who do that, we as a society, he talking again, we criticize, right? Without listening. Mr. Bill Adam said at the 11th hour, this procedure, this process under which this election or this referendum is going to be held was changed. I mean, literally, it was the night before, literally the 11th hour, right?
It was.
So what I'm asking is, us as the voters, as the society, as the media, as the platform the talk shows should provide, why are we going to only beat up on the elected politicians, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do that when it's justified, but let's step up as well. And when the politician, whatever the thing is that's happening, let's look at two things. We see a strong push to build higher buildings. Good or bad or indifferent, we see that. There are those who, the chamber president now says, well, is that what we want? Do we want to be another high-rise society?
The now sitting president?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Let's be clear.
Right? Yeah. No, thanks, right? We see economic forums and what they call them, these conferences or whatever, and we see, hey, this is a good thing. We understand the land use. But is it going to be across the board on all three islands? Is it only going to be on 7 Mile Beach? Is it going to be for me and you as potential developers, or only me and you if we come from somewhere else and we're seen as, and there's a qualifier to the word investor, right? Again, where is this thing that talks about free and fair and following the rule of law and the like? Now, what's good for the goose?
Yeah, well, I mean, if we're going to talk specifically about buildings and the height of them, I would say this to that end. If we took all of the 5-story condominiums on West Bay Road right now and we stacked them up in 15-story buildings, we would have a whole lot of beach left. Is all I'm saying.
Right.
So you have to weigh in on both sides of this. Now, we're talking about growing our population. Now, let's just be candid about this. We're talking about growing our population, so therefore we have to build accommodations. We're talking about growing our overstate tourism, so we have to create accommodations. I know we got Airbnb, which I'm not too particular keen on the full aspect of how that has affected our rental market. That's another day topic.
Yeah.
But I think that was something that was thrown into the mix to suffice a few voters and a few sections of society without any real comprehensive thought process on how that would affect our local rental market. Now, again, when we look at 10-story, 15-story, 25-story buildings, whatever the case may be, here's what I see. I see where we've already consumed all of the strategic land along the 7 Mile Beach and different areas and mangrove areas and different locations. And the problem with that is that do we want to spread out, or do we want to make sure that in certain zones have certain permissions to do certain buildings?
Well, back to planning, right?
Right. It's all about a plan and strategic,
a
national plan in place. So when you look at, and let's just look at the dark tunnels, right? And the reason why I mention them is because they're there and they're seemingly going to be there for the rest of our existence.
Right.
So would we rather just see these tunnels there and not have any extended development in terms of what they had in plan? Because from what I understand, there are going to be some towers that go on top of those that like hotels and not condos. They're not building condos; they're building a hotel accommodation,
retail and restaurant.
So if we're going to be extending our runway, upgrading our airport to bring in more flights, obviously we're going to need accommodation. Now, I would rather see them build on those tunnels than for them to buy more beach property and build on that.
But okay, with that, right?
So
I hear you. But how is it then that the only people that seem to don't know what's going on is the voter, right? Whether
again, that falls squarely in the lap of the government in order to inform their people in terms of what's going forward. Now, again, and I say this again, and I say this with a lot of conviction because, like I said, if I had a choice right now to take all of those 5-story buildings off of 7 Mile Beach and stack them up in 15-story buildings, I would do it.
Right. Okay, I hear you.
Because then it would preserve our shoreline. It would make sure that we properly develop that entire corridor.
Right. But somebody shared, right, Mario? If you did that, so you have higher buildings, of course, you're using less
land mass.
Right?
What are you going to affect?
Right.
If you're going higher, tell me.
No. So when those people come down, right, his point was twofold. When those people come out of those buildings, so they go to the beach, then you got to make sure you have space. So if you got more land space, they can use it. But until you do that, you need to make sure that your infrastructure, your fire services, your roads,
of course,
all that, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
100%. No, again, That goes back to what I said earlier about being proactive
The
as opposed
planning
to being
and stuff,
reactive.
yeah.
We can't allow a 20-story building to be built here and we don't have an adequate fire service to deal with that building, an emergency, in case of an emergency. Of course not.
Right.
So these are the steps that need to be put in place.
But-
so just to this last point. So when the 4K Man Alliance deal was being put in place, and when they had all of these opportunities to get certain things put in place that they could have thought 50 to 100 years down the road, we fell flat on our faces again.
But two things then to that point. Why is it then that the perception is, one, when we do anything like, let's use the word that we use loosely, concessions. The perception is that they accrue to a small group. The people by the table get something at the expense of the wider populace, right? But secondly, building heights. And that's more so as Ms. Susan reminds us to go to the break. We can build a 10 or 15 or 30-story building for a hotel or a commercial building, but your personal residence, can only be, 5 inches high, whatever it.
Because it's zoning. It's all about zoning, right? Right. You have heavy commercial, you have dense commercial, you have all these different zones. So obviously, I wouldn't want to see a 25-story building sitting in the middle of Newlands as an apartment complex. It doesn't go with the zoning. Now, obviously, if we are increasing numbers of our stayover, we are increasing the length of the runway, we are encouraging more people to come, then we're going to need accommodations. Now, we got to make a decision. Do we want 4 5-story buildings, or do we want one building that accommodates them all?
Okay. I hear you, man.
But again, it's something that needs to be talked about, and I think that the public road shows need to be a lot better in terms of being informative to the public, so they understand the magnitude of it. But
perfect.
We're going to go to a break.
All right. See that, man? You're going to go take a break, and when we come back, you want to keep my company some more?
Sure,
you think you won't get in trouble in it? All right. All right. He's a brave fella. Some people even accuse him of being handsome. I don't know if we go that far, but all right, when we come back, we'll talk today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio K-Man.
It's only 2 species that we have here on Island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice. For today's biggest news.
Access.
Local, regional, international. This is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom team.
Today's biggest news.
Cayman is 4 weeks away from Skystone, the 2020 First Technology Challenge Inter-School Robotics Competition. Minds-inspired Orium Re, Caribbean Utilities Company, Digicel, and Health City Cayman Islands are inviting everyone to come show support for the second annual Inter-School Robotics Competition. The event is Saturday, February 1st from 1 to 6 p.m. at the Arts and Recreation Center at Cayman Bay. Admission is free. Good afternoon once again. I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines. In news elsewhere, the Swedish furniture giant IKEA has agreed to pay $46 million to the parents of a child who was killed when a chest of drawers fell on him. 2-year-old Joseph Dudak suffocated in May of 2017 when the company's mom drawers toppled over at the family's California home. The item, which weighs 70 pounds, had been recalled a year earlier over safety concerns after 3 other children were killed. Lawyers say it's the largest child wrongful death settlement in U.S. history. And a team of doctors working with veterinarians at San Diego Zoo have carried out successful cataract surgery on a western lowland gorilla. The procedure was performed by an eye surgeon who has operated on thousands of humans, but never any other type of primate. 3-year-old Leslie was suffering increasing blindness in the left eye as a possible result of an injury. Leslie has now returned to her troop as she recovers from surgery. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thanks for sharing with us. Give us a call. Share your thoughts. Listen, you can agree. It's not a problem with that. We're 2 or more gathered. Not a bad thing. Or you can disagree. And we're not going to, hold it against you. Well, we might. What do you think? Yeah, probably might. Yeah, no. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. Miss Susan is standing by to take your calls right now. Mario Rankin sits with us. Mario, I say again publicly, thanks for for letting us have this banter, this chat, so that it may encourage other people to appreciate not only is it incumbent that we have a responsibility, especially as registered voters, to say things responsibly, respectfully, but timely and publicly. Now, there is a call online.
Nice.
But equally, maybe it's a new year, and maybe people would take up the mantle and say, let's move forward, because the election may be next year or it may be this year. I'm not going to say that I know the future. I know that we're preparing for it to be next year, 2021. But I can't tell you that I know the future, right? Let's go to the phones. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Yes, let me say good afternoon to you, Mr. Sterling Ebanks, and good afternoon to Mr. Mario.
Good afternoon, sir. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
I wish you both the best for 2020.
Amen.
Good health, prosperity, and also I'm wishing for you all great entrepreneurial successes as well, and may unprecedented presentments come your way, and may it all be lucrative, and may you both do very well. Yes?
Amen. And same to you, man. Same to you.
Thank you kindly. So Happy New Year. Quincy Brown here. It's a pleasure to be able to call in and speak to you, and by extension, your listeners. I would hope moving forward we could build what we called a Caymanian village, which would be a designated area for locals, Caymanians, residents, tourists alike, a place where we celebrate our cultural heritage. Because in this rapid development, we are losing the essence of what it means to be Caymanian. We're losing our traditions, our customs. Many people are moving here as adults, so obviously they're coming in with their way of thinking, and not all are willing to integrate or assimilate into the Caymanian way of living. Our cuisine is being watered down. I had a piece of heavy cake at the opening of a resort some years ago in Grand Cayman, and it wasn't heavy cake. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't our traditional cassava cake. Now, it was baked by somebody from Asia, and they tried their best, but obviously they put in things that they would to make it Asian Caymanian, I suppose.
I don't put you off, right? But as you talk about heavy cake, right? I just laughed to myself. I share with you. We call it heavy cake, and honestly, I have some friends who took some back to friends and family as they were going back after the Christmas. And you know, airlines now they're very strict with their weight restrictions, right? They put this thing, wrapped it up properly, put it into the suitcase to pack, and lo and behold, it went over by a lot of pounds. So it is a heavy cake. I had a laugh, and they took it out, and they're like, what do we do now? I mean, this thing was several pounds well.
Literally speaking.
It was a heavy cake.
And it's something we cannot eat every day. If we are to maintain good health and diet, we cannot be feasting on heavy cake on a daily basis.
Well, I tell you what, I tried it over the Christmas, boy, and it was a good diet. I had it every day.
Yeah, but I'm concerned though when it comes to see how what we know to be uniquely Caymanian, because we're oftentimes told that Caymanian not got no culture, we not got no identity, we not got no anything that makes us uniquely Caymanian. Well, that's far from the truth. That is simply not true. What is happening is we're losing it. And I'm thankful for reminders like Cayman Nostalgia. You can find that on Facebook, Old Cayman. And these are reminders of our cultural heritage. Now, I'm not saying let's get stuck in the past. What I am saying, as we develop, we need to know our identity and we need to preserve it. And having these programs in the schools, such as Christian's CTA, Cayman Traditional Arts, programs put on by the Cayman National Cultural Foundation, and there's so many others, we need to continue to fund these programs and support them. Also, Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, we talk about development, but a lot of times when we're talking about zoning and rezoning and development plans, we're only looking at Grand Cayman. Well, I come from Cayman Brac, and I want to chime in from that perspective, because Cayman Brac is developing slowly. We don't have that overnight rush that we saw in Grand Cayman. I mean, it seems as if we went sleep one night in Grand Cayman as a sleepy fishing village, and we woke up the next morning and it was, bam, a big financial center. All right, that's slightly exaggerated, but the changes happen so quickly on Grand Cayman. Cayman Brac and Little Cayman more gradual. Now, Mr. Truman Bodden and I had a conversation some years ago as we were flying from Cayman Brac back to Grand Cayman, we flew over Little Cayman. We didn't stop. And looking through the window, Mr. Truman said to me, Quint said, we got to preserve it, meaning Little Cayman. Little Cayman is very expensive. Little Cayman is the least populated island of the three islands, but it's doing very well as a tourism destination. The planes, jets can't land there, only small planes. They're always full. It's expensive. Let me tell you, you're going to pay top dollar in Little Cayman for that getaway, secluded vacation there. But the most beautiful beach on Little Cayman is the renowned Point of Sand Beach. Not as big as Grand Cayman 7 Mile Beach, obviously, but pristine beach. That has now been bought by a private developer, a private owner. So I am thinking in the next 5 to 10 years, the company that owns it, the enterprise that owns it, might develop it. They may choose to put a 5-star hotel there. Who knows? But what I'm saying is the BRAC and Little Cayman will develop. But what we don't want to do, you see, or I'm proposing we don't do, is we don't want to turn all three islands into what should I say, a metropolis. We don't want all three islands to feel like a city. We need to reserve one that feels like it's rural, not urban, more rural, more country-like. And I think Cayman Brac still has that. If you go to places like Spot Bay and watering places, some people say these districts are becoming ghost towns because a lot of people are dying out, yes. But there are still certain people, like in East End, Grand Cayman, you can go and they're still cooking on the caboose and they're still doing things that our traditional forefathers did. That's important. And that's what the tourists want to see. I buck up the tourists quite frequently. They're looking for that authentic Caymanian way. What I'm saying is let us try and preserve it best we can, because in all the major developments, and I am bold enough to answer the question that has been asked rhetorically. The question has been asked, who are we developing for? We are developing for those who haven't arrived here yet, but they're on their way as we grow our population, and in a Caymanian who want to enjoy it too.
Yeah.
But it's not only for us. So you either lead, follow, or get out of the way. As Caymanians, that's what we have to do, because it's no reversing the speeding ball. It's going far ahead. But let us not forget who we is as we develop. All right?
All right. And also, let's not forget who you're from.
Let's not forget who you're from.
Yeah.
Right. Because if we don't know the new little Filipino lady working at the computer at immigration, she not gonna know who we find, and then you're not convinced her that she's 5th, 6th, and 7th generation Caymanian.
But she'd also be willing to listen to, though. So that's one good thing about him. Bro, enjoy it, man. All the best to you for the new year. All right. Let's quickly pause, Miss Susan, with a final break. Get us this like a sour kick in the Charlene sent across. Boy, yeah. Here's Susan had tuck out. She went at it. All right, in a pause and take a break. With that, when they come back, languages? Maybe. I don't know. Let's see where Mario feels like taking us. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
The Business Buzz with Sabrina Turner. Each and every Tuesday and Thursday morning at 7:30 a.m. Brought to you by
Cayman Medical Supplies. Call them at 949-6211. Cayman Insurance Center, celebrating 45 years in the Cayman Islands, specializing in property, life, and other lines of insurance products and services. And also brought to you by FSH Design. Let your imagination grow with FSH Design. Visit fshdesign.com
maintaining the innovation.
On a daily basis, making it easy to connect with you, our listeners. Add us to WhatsApp today, 925-3261. That's 925-3261.
Radio Cayman.
Send a text or voice note.
Can I send a request, please?
You don't really have to ask us. Just send a request.
This is a shout out to my ex.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman maintaining the innovation.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thanks for listening and sharing and calling. 949-8837 or toll free with the kind compliments of Flo. at 1-800-534-88255. Mario Rankin shares his afternoon with us. Hey, with that, got a call on the line.
Oh, nice.
Let's head back to our phones. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Hello, sorry, Rambo again.
Welcome back, Rambo. How's it going?
Yeah, talk about again.
No problem, man. No problem.
You see, I be 36 years old. I lost my life, right? And I have Bill Ritz-Carlton, right?
Mm-hmm.
It proposed 5 to 6 floors store down with a contractor.
Mm-hmm.
Back in Scotland, fund them. So see? And now they went 8th floor.
Mm-hmm.
It's also contract. Okay? Floor down pick up. They went to Iraq. Right? They went to Batunia with here. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
His regime troops at that time, right? The project I try to make now, right? So I work up to the odd day, up to Tuesday, Saturday, after Friday, right? More man like my father, right? Maintenance work. We work for different clientele, customers, high-end customers, right? And we're aware of this iconic tower going up, right? Obviously, the high rollers, right? More like that, they want to keep to themselves, and they want business there, right? Nothing wrong with that, no. Someone they want to mingle, integrate with people, locals, right? And someone keep it themselves, in their own perimeter, their own zone.
Mm-hmm.
So I come from, nothing wrong with that, no. Okay. The whole point I make starting development in Cayman, right? Obviously, we got to elevate some sort of way. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
And if you sacrifice piece of land, you promote the mangroves, right? Because the mangrove is a buffer, right? Deterrent towards hurricane, right? I have to slow the impact, slow it down.
Right.
And certain final thing I say to you, if you recall, right? I called about 7 months ago telling you that Iran, right, they're the third provider with oil refinery in the world. Iran, the same Iran there, right? And I was telling you the same proxy war with Venezuela and pencil them back in opposition. But Russia, the Kremlin, China back in you talking from right?
Right.
So they get trapped now. Everything prerequisite, right? It required a prior condition. So you got to be careful how you tread now. We be small now, right? Caymanians, ain't that much Caymanians here now. Ain't that much Caymanians here, especially male. The male not reproducing fast. We can have a store but short. It's sad. Ain't that much, you know. So we kind of like we reserve unlimited store but short. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So the whole point I make, we got to be careful of the tribal going on. Like I said, Sterling, this U.S. trade deal, along the trade deal, right? It's beneficial for them. They reciprocate of them, right? And more like that be jeopardized with this Iran thing, it's a war thing. Yeah? Because they exercise the powers, U.S. exercise the powers now. Pentagon watching China, Russia too now. Don't get me wrong now. So you got to be careful. But Johnson now, he don't want nothing to do with it now. You talking from? So obviously from Friday starting, the prices of crude oil went up. On Friday, that was 6 hours ago, 4 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Obviously it increasing. So we got to watch ourselves. Came on, watch it carefully. I mean, our financial things stringent, everything line up, right? We got commerce cross, estimation mark, everything next. Yeah, but be careful. Like I said again, Florida, Daniel, they went to Iraq now, right? A lot of money is here now. Some Hussein money here now. Everybody have money here now.
Mm-hmm.
Back in days now. So nothing to hide, you know.
Yeah, man.
Like I said again, Sterling, came on now. It's 2020. The only new thing came on now. You go to a wedding or a funeral, straight up. And after that, boy, go to separate ways.
Yeah, well, one WhatsApp came in.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we talked about the callers comment prior to you about having a Caymanian village, and certainly being in favour of that. But like what you shared, sadly, if it's not a supermarket, it's a funeral that you tend to run into more of your own, and that's not healthy for a society. That we're only seeing ourselves on the way out. we're not mingling on the way in. Any other thoughts you want to share with us?
Yeah, so I mean, that's what I say to you. I mean, I don't really, I personally really, like I said earlier when I called the first time,
Mm-hmm.
I don't look at a person. I'm sorry, I've been a person. I don't look at a phone, sort of.
Yeah, man.
I've been in physical form, but, that's how to contribute that. Get off my chest. You understand?
When you're ready, man.
All right, cool, man.
Cool. All right. Mario, I was just thinking as that caller perspective in relation to the resilience and the resolve of our people, right? And we see just the news media, for instance, the reports of one of the members from CPR, Ms. Rosen, the courts now granting a protective order. Comments earlier, I think, and even comments now in relation to that, if we don't speak from a position that is accurate, so media comments now could give the impression that this protective order is the first of its kind, it's historical. But go back to 2014, say, or thereabouts, where, as we refer to them affectionately, the West Bay ladies in trying to look after the preservation of the road, right? Mm-hmm. And the courts in the scene, they granted a protective order.
They did, yeah.
Our people have a resolve, a resilience, a desire to do the right thing, Yeah, and that's important.
Yeah, and the thing is that when we look at this process and how it's played out, a lot of these things could have easily been avoided. Even with the West Bay Road closure with those ladies, a lot of those things could have been resolved if it had been the level of transparency that should have taken place. The problem is that we see and like for me, I'm not gonna get into any great detail about what happened with the court protection order, because
no.
It was something that we talked about in the past. It's something that we sat down and we strategized and we realized what was the best way forward to make this thing work, and now we're reaping the benefits of that, and that's what's important here. We just need to know, stay the course and make sure that we see this all the way through to the end, and everybody have their collective opinions. But the bottom line is look, these things are being done simply because we want to see what's best for Cayman. Bottom line, that's it. Who can't understand that, then there's not much we can do in that regard. But when we look at certain institutions in Cayman, and again, it's conversation that we could have, and it's held to debate and topics that we can talk about for a long time. But until we start putting things in place to create, that sustainable environment, to create a better environment, to extract some of the things that we should be extracting from certain institutions. We talk, Rambo talked about oil and Iran. I can tell you right now, I could share an article that I wrote in the early part of last year about Iran, about the Saudis, about America and all the contributions and what would happen. I forecasted this. I know Donald Trump was going to go to war, or try to go to war with Iran. They haven't started the war yet, but certainly set the stage. But the reality is that if you look at the United States of America, the only military bases they have foreign is based in oil-rich countries. As much as Kim Jong-il has threatened to practice nuclear weapons, how come they didn't invade him? And no one is saying that Salam wasn't a person of great threat to certain regions. Of course, he's a ridiculous individual. He at some point needed to be dealt with. But when you look at what's taking place, they tried to make it seem like Iran were bombing these oil tankers so they can go to war with them. When that didn't work, they said that Iran bombed the Saudis' oil wells. They couldn't, no intelligence proved that was the case. But when you look on American media, all you can hear is that Iran did this and Iran did that, and the Republicans were looking at a way to go to war with Iran from a very long time ago, from Donald Trump got in office, because they know Obama wouldn't do it. Now, what he talked about that interests me more than anything else is obviously the price of crude. OPEC has been trying for the last 7.5 years to slow down production of crude globally, so that they can increase the price per barrel. And I'll tell you why that is. 7 sovereign nations in the Middle East depend on crude to be over $100 a barrel in order for them to balance their GDP. 7. Kuwait and a bunch of other ones, Iraq being one of them. So you would have seen this push from OPEC, and the Saudis never slowed down production of oil, even in the agreement that they made with OPEC back in 2015. Yeah, we'll slow down. And then that same year was their largest production ever, which brought down the prices. But what we need to do here on the home front is we need to have proper regulation in place that protect the local consumer. Cost of living is at its all-time high simply because we have lack of regulation, and we have allowed these institutions, like I say, to self-govern themselves. And I go straight to the utility company because they've been allowed to run unbridled for far too long. And that new contract they got in 2008, again, clearly demonstrated their ability to lobby for government to get what they want. You know, fuel is 100% pass-through cost to the consumer. Me and you, Sterling, everybody consume it. So then why are we allowing them to buy it from retailers? Why is the government allowing the person who are billing you for fuel to buy the fuel from a retailer who set up in the Cayman Islands? You realize that Rubis or Sol doesn't store any fuel for CUC. CUC have their own storage tanks, and it's pumped straight from Jackson Point straight to their storage tank. So then why do we need them? Why do we need retailers to sell it to them that they're going to charge us for and put a fuel factor on our bill? But let me tell you what this country needs. This country needs an independent audit on what that fuel factor is actually producing and what we are paying for fuel and what they are charging people for fuel. Because I can assure you, Sterling, that if we had an independent audit of CUC to determine what that fuel factor really is, I bet you'll be paying 10 times more than what it actually is. I can guarantee you that. But again, you know, nobody is rushing to the start line to make sure that an independent audit is done of somebody who's charging us for fuel that we have no idea what that per kilowatt hour is, only based on what they tell us. Okay? And then the biggest point of all, they're not, or let me say they are not. We, as the consumers who is responsible for 100% of fuel from the utility company, we are not enjoying global low prices. It's been 7+ years that a barrel of crude has been below $100, yet we fail to see that at the pumps. We fail to see that in our energy bill. And why that is because we have self-serving individuals who are elected in this country to protect that status quo, to ensure. You telling me, and let me just put this in perspective before we close off. This country, for energy, burns over 36 million gallons of diesel per year. Put that in your calculator, and you times that by $4 a gallon, or whatever it is that CUC claim they're paying. I know it's $1 less than the pump price, somewhere around there, or a little less. But in any event, you times that by that $4. You know how much money you're looking at? You know what? You're looking at almost $1 billion a year we spending on energy in this country. Somebody is benefiting from that. Hence the reason why we've allowed them to maintain control of buying fuel that we have to pay for. You understand? When I drive down the road in my car, I look for the cheapest gas station. I have that choice because I ain't control of that. Now, they drive in our car and they buying from who they want to buy from, which tells me one thing. Somebody benefiting from that. And it's not the Caymanian people, and we got to put a stop to that. This 2020, one of the clauses in their new Evergreen contract states very clearly, and I have already had it interpreted by lawyers, it states that you must do what's in the best interest of the Cayman Islands people. And I can tell you, selling us retail fuel is not in the best interest of the Cayman Islands consumer. It's the main driving factor in the high cost of living, which is fuel. It has enough fuel. We have a fuel cost attached to every consumable in this country. But yet, our politicians do nothing about it. We have off-reg, which is a joke, complete joke. And that need to fix. And these are the areas that we need to start focusing on now. If we want a sustainable Cayman, we want continuity for Caymanians, and we want to ensure that we exist in the next 50 years, these are the changes we have to make. We don't want people to like these changes, They just need to get used to these changes. And when I say people, I mean those institutions who have been enjoying the economic success on the backs of Caymanians with no regulation, nobody to lead us into the 21st century. Because why? Because they got a long hand out, like everybody else. But that all got stopped now because you know why? We got another tranche of educated Caymanians who are going to be coming back to these shores. And you're not going to be able to sell this idea that Cayman is all fine and dandy to them. And we're going to fight for what's right. We're going to draw that line in the sand. We're going to take back what's rightfully ours. We need to abolish all of these institutions that has been running roughshod over Cayman. And I don't say that in any derogatory term, Sterling. I say that in the nicest way. Because I am pro-development. I am pro-business. I am pro all these things. But it has to be sustainable. Development has to be sustainable. All the things that we are now seeing has to be sustainable. Caymanians must be benefiting from these things. That nice program, when I looked in that hall at Lion Center, that came out on the very same day that they say they had 30,000 work permits. That in itself was irony, that we need to wake up. And every single face in that auditorium were all Caymanians. Okay, so we need to come up to the realization, look, man, we have a problem, we can fix it, here's the solutions. I'm not here talking about issues only, the solutions are there. You understand? You realize that right now to date, after Hurricane Ivan, we paid for all of the infrastructure generators for our utility company, but yet they still got light poles on Crown Land. And let me give you something more interesting and all that now, so the listening public understand. If there's a light pole in your property, right now today, if there's a light pole in your property, it don't have to be there for free. Okay? They don't have no legal right to have no light pole in your land for free. That's a fact. In 2008, they didn't carry forward the agreement and that new agreement that would have mitigated that. So therefore, every light pole that sits on Crown land and private property is in breach. And they need to be held accountable for these things. First of all, we want back our grid. We need to own that grid. And anybody who want to operate off that grid need to pay the Cayman Islands government, which is essentially the people of this country. We need to take back that Jackson Point pipeline from Jackson Point to CUC. That belongs to us. That's what we need to start doing. That 6 cent through pipe cost that they charge in the retailer, you know how much millions of dollars that make every year? That can go into scholarship fund. That can pay for health care. That can pay for social welfare. We falling on our faces, and while all these institutions is running away, running wild, making all the money, and Caymanians suffering, go find me one foreclosed home application that have anybody other than a Caymanian name on it, and then you got my attention.
I always appreciate listening to you. To our listeners, thank you for sharing. I invite you to come back tomorrow. Please join me start in the morning for the record. Come back for Talk Today right after the midday news and midday meditation. Until then, be blessed.